Joe. Hello, Liam. How are you? You all right?
Right, we're all whenever
Okay.
you're ready, mate. Take it.
We're ready, Sam, yeah?
Yes, mate. Crack on, Kers.
How have the last couple of weeks off been, or how much time have you had off, and when did the players come back in?
They had a week off, the first week off. I say not all of them, but those who had earned it by way of game time and fitness, well-being, and then we came back in, did some black ops with Wayne Hoyle out in Bryn in Wigan, cold water swimming in a freshwater reservoir, 4 degrees, just calm the mind, get them back into it, and then we did a decent week's training, like a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, hard work and getting back to our game model. And then they've all been in, every one of them, obviously, for the prep of this week.
Going into Saturday's game, how do you go about selection? Obviously, not in the Champions Cup like we'd have hoped. How do you look at things with different priorities in terms of trying to get that home semi in the Premiership versus the Challenge Cup? How do you balance those things out, or is the Challenge Cup this weekend as big a priority as Bristol away in a couple of weeks?
For us, finding form, getting cohesion, finding form for our best players, getting cohesion with a group of players who haven't really played that much together, either through injury or the Six Nations recently, that's the priority first and foremost. We get them playing well, get them cohesive, and then down the line we can pick and choose potentially. But first and foremost, it's getting form, and for that they need game time together.
Do you look back at those 2 Premiership Rugby Cup weeks back in the start of February? Obviously, that was off the back of 2 months of intense rugby, so obviously the reasoning was a very valid one, but it feels like maybe some of the momentum from earlier in the season had been lost, although the Northampton game could have panned out very differently if there weren't 3 cards. Do you look back on that and maybe think you should have done that slightly differently in terms of selection, or is that hindsight's a wonderful thing and that's rubbish to even start thinking like that?
No, they were beaten up, Kieran. We haven't rotated this year, as you know. We played best team whenever we can. They were 9 games through, physically battered. Don't know if you remember that. What's the last game we played in that block? It took a lot out of us.
Bath away, Bath at home, sorry.
Yeah, Bath at home, yeah. And we didn't have a pack by Thursday. We literally didn't. Like, we were waiting till the last training day to see if we can get a pack together, which shows you how strung out they were at that point. I reckon through the attritional style of which we play, but what we've learned on the back of 2 8 to 9 game blocks of continuous rugby, that's about our limit for this group, to get some consistency performance like they were done at that point in time. So no, I wouldn't have changed. I mean, look, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's just the process. It's process versus outcome. You know, it's process versus outcome. Like, you're outcoming, and I'm looking at the process, and I still believe in the process.
In terms of who is and isn't available, obviously it was revealed earlier this week, although I'd seen on the weekend that Kobus van Wyk posted that he was out for the season. What, I suppose, firstly on him, what is the nature of that knee injury? How severe? Obviously out for the rest of the season, but beyond that, how much more severe is it?
Yeah, it's as bad as it gets. Kobus's knee is as bad as it gets. It's a fractured knee with ACL and meniscal tears. It's 6 to 9 months. So we're devastated for him. Devastated. Because he was a crucial part of the squad, and he's a brilliant lad. You know, more so for the latter than the former. You know, no one deserves like an injury like that. It's a bad part of the game, and it's a really shit part of the season for it to happen.
Knowing that obviously that will mean he'll miss probably a significant part of next season, does that now alter or spur you into action in terms of signings for next season, or a signing in terms of in the second row? Does his injury, knowing that he's going to miss probably at least the first 3 or 4 months of next season. Does that now change recruitment plans?
Yes. Well, like I've been saying all season, the recruitment is an ever-changing, fluctuating environment. So we revisit bi-monthly anyway, but we already had plans, and I've signed someone up in the back 5 department anyway, a week before Kobus did his knee, so that is a positive thing. Prophetic foresight, whatever, and then we're looking to get some injury dispensation as well.
Bit of a silly question. How is Kobus?
He's all right. He's at his brother's, or has been for the last few days. His wife's pregnant, so we'll be around for the birth and for the first few months of helping her, which is a positive if there is such a thing. He leaves. He's played really, really well. So I think that his stock within the organisation as it is, because he's a good bloke, is quite high. So it's not like he's faded out. At least he's, in terms of the peak end effect, which a lot of psychologists say that how your memory relives events. A lot of his is going to be good and of a high quality over the course of the season, because he's had a really good season. So yeah, he's all right. Look, he's all right. Seemingly he's stronger than everyone else around him. Everyone else is like, and he's like, the people who were going through the injury, like, they've got to get on with it, haven't they? Anyway, you know what I mean? They've got to crack on. So he's cracking on.
Other than Kobus, is there anyone else in the senior squad who isn't available fitness-wise for Saturday?
Yeah, we're still waiting on Tom Curry. Still waiting on that, so that will be confirmed on Thursday. He's like, he will or he won't, because it's that close for him. It's either this or next week.
He has been back training for a week or so, hasn't he? Or am I wrong there?
Yeah, he's been back on the field, but with Tom, because he knows his body so well, and at the level of intensity he plays at, like, you run the risk, if he's not pushing the meters above and beyond what match intensity is, he has the ability to re-injure, because he hasn't got pain threshold, and he's slightly tapped in terms of what he can push his body through. So if his body's not up to it, he'll break his body. So we are a little bit overly cautious to make sure that we don't put him in harm's way unnecessarily.
How close is Connor Doherty to making a return to full fitness?
Yeah, he's out there tackling people in non-contact training. He is a nuisance in training, but that's his X factor, isn't it? He looks pretty sharp. Caught Reedy today on an angle, no less, but he did catch Reedy, so it tells you. And he belted him. His excuse was like, if I didn't tackle him, he's going to round me. But you can just touch him, can't you, and still say you've got him. Anyway, you tackled him.
Other than obviously waiting on Tom, is everyone else fully fit?
Yeah, Nick's fit. Nick Schoonert fully fit. I know he's played the last 2, but he was kind of coming back to fitness. Acker's back. Up for selection. Obviously, Ben's back. Manu looks sharp. George, the back 3 that's been playing. Both Dupree's good. Yeah, positive on that front. But like I say, a lot of these lads I've just mentioned haven't really played that much together, have they? So that's probably where we come in as coaches. But it's really game time that they need.
You probably are expecting the usual questions on players' futures.
Go on.
Manu,
yeah.
Obviously, we're kind of late into March. Has he made the decision, or is it still ongoing and still trying to find enough money to make a deal happen?
It's we want him. He wants to stay. We had no money Then we had a bit of money. Now we've got twice as much money, Kieran, than what we did have. I'm going to him to sit down with him to see if it's enough.
Okay.
Right, I know he wants to stay, so this is just a question of whether his family can survive in it, and how much he's willing to sacrifice. I guess I'll be buying lunch.
There's been quite a bit of speculation about Aka and whether he might be going back to South Africa. Can you say anything on those rumours?
He's not going back. Not next year, not from my understanding, and he wants to sign an extension. So I said I'd sit with him this week, and we want to give him an extension because he's world class, isn't he? And his body and his head's right. He's world class, like one of the best in the world. So we want it. I like him. I like it. He adds a lot round here. So we'll be looking to extend him, not let him go.
Just one final player future. There's been also rumours that your predecessor is looking to lure Ewan to Scotland. Is that something that you would be willing to do, or will you be telling Dines politely to go away and we want to keep Ewan?
Any luring of Scotland by way of Ewan Ashman is and has been going on for years, Kieran. Like years, to Edinburgh, where his girlfriend is, where his uncle is, where his uncle played, and, you know, his dad is from. So there's a lot of pulls there, isn't there? Aside from impending salary cap. It's something that we've talked about in the past and something they've been trying to do in the past. So I think it's important to make the separation, the distinction from Steve Diamond and Ewan Ashman, and the connection between Ewan Ashman and the SRU and their overtures towards him. We're not about to keep anyone here who doesn't want to be here. Doesn't work for me, that. So there are discussions, and he's a great player. You know, he's a really good player, Ash, and I think the best of him's yet to come. If he thinks that, if he thinks his best opportunity is at Edinburgh, then that's something that we'll have to come to terms with at the moment. You know, nothing's been signed on that front, but there has been, like, obviously, if there's smoke, there's fire. There's been fire around it, but it's not come by way of Steve.
So is that an ongoing situation? Nothing has been decided on that front?
Nothing's been decided. It is ongoing, yeah.
In terms of, I know you've spoken about future planning and planning a couple of seasons in advance. Is that solely in terms of the current squad and looking at when player contract end and therefore looking to sign new players up, because you can't speak to players of other clubs until, a year before the contract ends? So is that just in terms of future planning for next season, 2024 and 25? Is that just in terms of the current sales squad because of that inability to be able to directly speak to players at other clubs?
Sorry, the succession planning.
Yeah, see, I know you've spoken a few times about that there's been succession planning and planning for seasons in advance. Yeah,
there is, till 24, 25, maybe a bit after that. And it's because of the nature of the cap, because as you get young players that come through and their salaries increase, you just find, and you keep those regulars or the lads who were on a decent whack anyway, 2 years down the line, you're over the cap and everyone's contracted. So the part succession planning for that reason. Succession planning because you want to keep the core group of a squad together, because that's what all the evidence suggests. Talented players kept together win over time. So that's important. And also important, so you don't have negotiations where you've got 15, 20 people out of contract. I think it's important to kind of stagger contracts and go like 3 deep in each area if you can.
In terms of those future seasons and potentially, are you already identifying players that you might want to have a look at, let's say, in the recruitment drive for next season, or is that too difficult a question to answer now because you don't know where, for example, some of the 18-year-olds in the squad might be in 6-12 months' time?
There's perhaps one or two, that is it, one or two out of 45 positions that we are still discussing around for this season. Maybe one for next, depending on who we're able to retain the services of. We're very lucky because the bulk of our squad, as I've said and said again, is between like 22 and 27, 28. So it's more about retention than recruitment for us. And that's been purposeful, you know. We've shaped the squad as it is today to get a group of players that we're able to keep together by age demographic and obviously where they're from.
In terms of the salary cap, there's been kind of conflicting reports on whether in a year's time it will go back up to its previous level or whether it will stay. As far as you know, not next season but the season after, is the cap going to stay at the same level or is it going to go back up?
As far as I know, we plan for it being the same level. Yeah, I think there's like 3 or 4 clubs who want it to go up, who have the spending power. You know, 2 or 3 who probably can't survive as it is right now. And you know, we're probably somewhere in the middle where we're willing to go to that. But I think everyone agrees that it's not feasible. So why should you make the game less feasible by taking it back up?
There's been a lot of talk about where English rugby goes moving forward, and one of the things that certainly a good friend of yours has said in Mark McCauley, he's backed central contracts. Where would you stand on central contracts for the RFU?
I think that would be the best thing for everyone if they were to centrally contract the players and then kind of lease them back to clubs, because we don't have control over them anyway as it is right now. Looking at from the RFU's point of view, why would you bother? I've said this before, because they get the retention of the players as it is anyway. They get the time that they want with them, albeit not all the time they want with them. And they have none of the risk regards to long-term injury. You know, we pick up the risk for that. If someone gets injured, then it's back on us, and the RFU pick another player. So I don't understand what the benefit of them century contract for them. It definitely worked for the better for clubs like Saracens, and hopefully where we're going with an increasing amount of international players, because it means we'd have more money to spend on infrastructure as well as playing squad.
Just one final one then. There's also been a lot of talk about whether the RFU should relax its rules on picking players who are playing abroad, although Rob Baxter said that if Steve Borthwick was still Leicester head coach, his view might be slightly different. Where would you stand on players playing abroad if the RFU were to completely relax it now? Do you think that would be a good or a bad thing?
I think because of the salary cap, you have to be able to give yourself the licence to be able to pick from international waters. I think otherwise you're kind of hamstringing yourself as a nation. Like you can't, difficult, isn't it? Because you can't, I get why they're doing it, because it keeps all the best players in this country playing in the Premiership. But when they move on and earn money, which obviously they're worth because the market value dictates that, it opens the void up for younger players to come through as well and step up. It's been shown with South Africa that you are able to pick from players who are all around the world and still perform on the international stage, win a World Cup. So it is possible. But I think because of recent times, and it is extenuating circumstances, isn't it, with COVID and with salary caps and with a few clubs going down, that, you know, I think extenuating circumstances require some wiggle room to get the best international team that you can get leading up to World Cups. I haven't got all the things in front of me, but I just think that's common sense, isn't it? Pick your best team.
Right, thank you for your time, Alex.
Cheers, Kieran.